I stared at the screen, reading her message over and over again. Don't call me anymore. My fingers went numb. My own mother, my best friend growing up, had just cut me off like I was nothing. And the worst part? I didn't even know why. But if she wasn't going to answer my calls, I'd make sure she heard me anyway. So I showed up, holding a mic in my hand. And what I said into it changed everything. I'm Mia. I'm 27. And somewhere in the last 6 months, my mother became a stranger. It still feels surreal when I say it out loud, like I'm reading lines from a sad indie film, not living them. But every time I look at the blank screen on my phone where her name should be lighting up, I'm reminded this is real. She's gone. Not in the physical sense, she's still out there. Still breathing. Still doing something. But the woman I knew? The woman who raised me, fought for me, loved me with everything she had. She's vanished behind some invisible wall I can't tear down. Let me backtrack for a second. I live in Austin now, and I work as a podcast producer. It's a chaotic, creative life full of 3 a.m. editing sessions, coffee that tastes like burnt toast, and a constant need to balance other people's stories while mine quietly unravels behind the scenes. It's funny how I help strangers tell the truths they're too scared to say out loud. Yet I've spent the last 6 months avoiding my truth like it might crack my chest wide open. Before all of this, back before silence stretched between my mother and me like a canyon, I lived a life held together by the soft, constant presence of her voice. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, the kind with a single main street, a high school football obsession, and neighbors who still baked each other pies after funerals. My mom, Angie, was the rock of our tiny corner of the world. She worked 2 jobs when I was little, bank teller by day, waitress by night, but somehow always had energy left for me. We shared everything. I mean everything. When I had my first period and cried because I thought it made me weak, she brought me a box of chocolate, told me a cringy story about her first time, and then turned it into a mini celebration with takeout and a movie night. When I didn't get into NYU, the dream school I'd obsessed over for years, she took off work just to sit on the porch with me in the cold and let me scream into the sky for an hour. No judgment. No sugarcoating. Just presence. And it wasn't just the big moments. It was the everyday things. She used to leave sticky notes with cheesy affirmations on my bathroom mirror in high school. She learned how to make tofu stir-fry from scratch when I went through a brief vegan phase at 16. She even sat through every single one of my terrible open mic nights at Cafe Beans and Verse, a hipster coffee shop with mismatched furniture and fairy lights, and pretended my free verse poems about heartbreak and capitalism were Pulitzer material. God, she clapped louder than anyone. I don't think I realized how much her presence shaped my sense of being safe until it was gone, or how much I took for granted that she'd always be there. There was no dramatic argument, no betrayal, no falling out that made it clear something had snapped. Just a slow fade. The first time I noticed something was off was during one of our usual Tuesday FaceTime calls. I was walking around Lady Bird Lake, earbuds in, phone camera pointed at the skyline like I always did when I wanted her to feel close to my world. I was babbling about a new client, some crime doc with a diva host, when I realized she hadn't said anything in a while. Mom. I looked down at the screen. She was staring off to the side, brows furrowed, almost like she wasn't even watching me. Her lips were pursed in that tight line she always did when she was thinking hard, or trying not to cry. Yeah, she said quickly, snapping back. Sorry, I thought I heard something outside. Keep going. I brushed it off. We all have distracted days. But the next week she canceled our call. No reason. Just a quick text. Can't today. Rain check. That was the first rain check. There would be many more. Texts became shorter, then fewer. Calls went unanswered. When I did reach her, she sounded distant, like she was underwater. Like the warmth in her voice had been replaced with something cold and hollow. I started to spiral quietly. At first, I blamed myself. Had I said something insensitive? Was I being selfish, always talking about work and city life and forgetting to ask about her? I went through every message I'd sent her, rereading every sentence for hidden tone, missteps, carelessness. Nothing stood out. It wasn't like we were fighting. It was worse than fighting. It was drifting. One day in March, I called and it went straight to voicemail. Not unusual, I told myself. But an hour later, it did it again. And again. By the next morning, I was calling hourly, and by the third day, I was a wreck, sitting on my apartment floor, surrounded by half-eaten takeout and old mugs, hitting redial until my thumb hurt. I finally left a message. My voice cracked. "Mom, are you okay? Please call me. Please." No response. Weeks passed. I started messaging her friends. I sent a casual, "Hey, just checking in on Mom. Haven't heard from her," LOL to her neighbor Patty, trying to mask the panic with a fake laugh. Patty replied 2 hours later with a single line. "She's around, just seems tired lately." Tired? My mom had run marathons of emotion and work in parenting. She didn't get tired. Not like this. Something was wrong. I could feel it in my bones. I called my Aunt Louise, her older sister. Louise has always been kind but guarded, a human-locked filing cabinet. When she picked up, I didn't even pretend to be casual. "Do you know what's going on with Mom?" I asked. "She won't call me back. I'm freaking out." There was a pause on the line long enough for me to picture her expression. Tight-lipped, worried, already bracing. "She's going through something," she said slowly. "Going through what?" Louise sighed. "It's not my place, Mia. Just give her space, all right? Sometimes people pull back because they need time. Let her cool off." Let her cool off. What was I? A high school boyfriend who'd messed up prom night? I was furious. But underneath the anger was a deeper, more terrifying feeling. Helplessness. And that scared me more than anything. I had always been able to reach her. Always. I mailed her a handwritten letter. Poured my heart into it. Told her I loved her. That I missed her. That if she was mad, I was sorry. Even if I didn't know what I'd done. I waited 2 weeks. Nothing. I sent her favorite daisies from the flower shop she used to take me to every Mother's Day. No response. Then one afternoon, in a stupid moment of desperate curiosity, I checked her Facebook. And it felt like the floor gave out under me. Every photo of us gone. Every family trip, birthday, Christmas morning selfie deleted. I scrolled for 10 minutes, eyes dry and burning, until I found a recent post. A picture of a sunset over the lake near our old house. No caption. Just there. Like I hadn't existed. Like I was air. That's when I knew this wasn't temporary. Something had broken. And she wasn't planning to tell me why. My therapist says grief isn't just about death. It's about loss in any form. And this? This felt like death with the lights still on. Every day, I walked around Austin like a ghost. I'd go to work, edit episodes, smile at baristas, pretend my life was still intact, but inside, I was bleeding. People don't talk enough about the slow kind of heartbreak. The kind where someone you still love decides to disappear 1 inch at a time. Where there's no closure. No explosion. Just absence. And the worst part? I still didn't know why. That's the part that haunts me the most. Because about 6 months ago, my mother became a stranger. It started subtly. So subtly I almost missed it. A missed call here. A delayed reply there. I told myself it was nothing. Life gets busy, right? I was working overtime, buried in podcast deadlines, my phone buzzing constantly with messages from producers and hosts needing quick fixes. When I saw Mom hadn't responded to my text for a couple of days, I barely blinked. I figured she was just as swamped. But then she missed our usual Sunday call. That was a ritual. Non-negotiable. We hadn't missed a single one in almost 5 years. Not since I moved to Austin. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe she's just tired. Maybe she forgot. I left her a voicemail, trying to sound casual even though my gut was doing cartwheels. "Hey Mom, just missed you. Hope everything's okay. Call me when you can, love you." No response. The next morning, I sent a simple text. "Mia. Good morning. Just checking in. Everything all right?" 1 check mark. No reply. I told myself not to panic. She was probably busy. She always kept her phone on silent when she was gardening. Or maybe she was binge-watching something and just didn't want to be interrupted. That happens sometimes. But the silence continued. And it started to feel intentional. When she did respond a few days later, the tone was off. Short. Blunt. Like I was a coworker she barely tolerated. Her, I'm fine. Just tired. No love you. No emojis. No housework. Or did that podcast launch yet? Nothing. I stared at the screen for a long time. I typed out replies. Deleted them. Typed again. Eventually, I just sent. Meow. Let me know if you need anything. I love you. No answer. The following week, I called again. Straight to voicemail. Then again. Still nothing. My mind, once a place of hopeful excuses, began spinning into darker territory. Was she sick? Depressed? Had I missed some major sign? Was she in trouble? Or was she angry? I racked my brain, digging back through every conversation we'd had in the past few months. Did I say something flippant? Did she misunderstand a joke? I told her I might not come home for Thanksgiving because work was piling up. Was that it? Did that hurt her? I couldn't tell. And that not knowing, it was torture. I reached out again, a week later, this time with less patience in my voice. Mom, it's me. I don't know what's going on, but can you please just call me back? Even just to say you're okay? Still nothing. Then came the final call. It was a Tuesday afternoon, right before a recording session. My stomach had been in knots all day, and something in me just snapped. I stepped outside, pacing under the pale Austin sun. Phone pressed to my ear, heart racing. I dialed her number. Ring. Ring. Click. She picked up. My stomach dropped. I opened my mouth to speak, but she beat me to it. Her voice was sharp. Clipped. Not angry, worse. Empty. Mia, she said. I'm done. There was a pause, like she wanted to make sure I was listening. Don't call me anymore. And then, click. Just like that, she was gone. I stood there frozen. The birds kept chirping. The wind moved through the trees like nothing had happened. But inside me, everything shattered. My first instinct was to scream. Or cry. Or throw my phone across the sidewalk. But I couldn't move. I just stood there, my mouth open, replaying her words on a loop. I'm done. Don't call me anymore. No context. No reason. No goodbye. I went back into the studio in a daze. My coworker Josh asked if I was okay. I lied and said I was just tired. But inside, I was unraveling. I stayed up all night rereading old texts, voice notes, emails. Looking for a clue. Anything. Was she having a mental health crisis? Was she drinking again? Was she seeing someone shady? The worst part was the shame. This whispering, relentless voice in my head that kept asking, what if you really did something wrong? What if you're the reason she walked away? I couldn't take it anymore. So I called Aunt Louise. Louise is one of those women who always seems like she's in the middle of pruning something. Plants, people, feelings she's always trimming. Never letting things grow wild. When she answered, I skipped the pleasantries. Do you know what's going on with Mom? Silence. Louise. Please. She won't talk to me. She told me not to call her anymore. A sigh. She's going through something. Like what? I can't say, Mia. It's not my place. She's my mother, I said, the desperation seeping into my voice. I have a right to know if she's okay. Another long pause. She's not mad at you, all right? She's just processing things. You need to let her cool off. Cool off from what? But she didn't answer. That was 3 months ago. 3 months of limbo. 3 months of waking up and hoping today would be the day I'd hear her voice again, and going to bed disappointed. I tried everything. I wrote her letters. Long ones, short ones. Some where I apologized for things I didn't even know I'd done. Others where I just begged her to talk to me. I emailed. Nothing. I left voicemails. No reply. I even sent her favorite white lilies, through the florist down the street from her house. The one she loved because the woman who ran it gave out free chocolates. I paid extra for a handwritten note. Thinking of you. I love you. Mia. Still silence. It was like yelling into a canyon. Then, something happened that broke me in a way I didn't think possible. It was late one night. I was restless, pacing in my apartment, feeling like I was floating outside my own life. On a whim, I opened Facebook. I hadn't checked her profile in a while. She was never super active, but I needed to feel connected to her in some way. Even just seeing a picture. Except there weren't any. Every photo of us was gone. Every single one. I scrolled frantically, hands shaking. The vacation pictures from Lake Erie? Gone. The snapshot of us on my college graduation day. Her arms wrapped tightly around me, both of us beaming? Deleted. Birthday brunch? Christmas at Grandma's? The dumb selfie we took at that hot air balloon festival, where my bangs were melting from the humidity? All of it erased. It wasn't just a tech glitch. She had deliberately removed me. I remember gasping, like I'd just taken a punch straight to the ribs. I pressed a hand to my mouth, trying not to cry. I didn't want to. I didn't want to give her, or the universe, the satisfaction. But my body had other plans. I sank to the floor of my bedroom, knees to my chest, sobbing so hard I couldn't breathe. She hadn't just ignored me. She had erased me. It felt like being disowned. Like I had died, and she was already moving on with her life, rewriting the story without me in it. I didn't sleep that night. But sometime around 4 a.m., while staring at the ceiling and listening to the humming of my air conditioner, something inside me shifted. The grief, the pain, it burned. But underneath it was something hotter. Stronger. Anger. No. This isn't how our story ends. If she wouldn't listen to me in private, maybe it was time to speak a little louder. And I had the perfect platform. I grabbed my gear, booked a flight back to Ohio, and told no one. Not my friends. Not my coworkers. Not even Josh, who's basically my work husband, and could tell something was off just by how I chewed my lip during edit sessions. I couldn't explain it. I didn't want feedback, advice, or encouragement. I wasn't looking for validation. I needed to do this alone. This wasn't a trip. It was a mission. One I didn't fully understand yet, only that something inside me felt like it would suffocate if I stayed silent one more day. I packed light. Just my field recorder, 2 microphones, my laptop, and 1 battered pair of headphones. The essentials. Not for comfort. Not for nostalgia. But to tell a story. Our story. One way or another. The plane ride felt like being suspended in time. I sat by the window, forehead against the cold glass, watching the clouds blur into one another like thoughts I couldn't hold on to. My earbuds played old voicemail recordings, ones I'd saved from my mom before everything fell apart. Her voice in those messages? Warm. Musical. Familiar. Hey honey, just checking in. Left some lasagna in your freezer. Don't let it get frostbite. You sounded tired yesterday. Drink some water. And sleep, please. I closed my eyes. The contrast between that woman and the one who told me not to call her anymore felt unreal. Like 2 timelines colliding. I wanted to shake the universe and scream, give her back. When the plane landed in Ohio, I didn't go home. I couldn't face our house, her house, knowing she wasn't going to open the door, arms outstretched, with that sarcastic, well, look what the wind dragged in. Instead, I rented a beat-up Honda and drove straight to the Saturday flea market. If you've never been to one in a small Midwest town, let me paint the picture. Folding tables loaded with vintage tools, old baseball cards, sun-bleached porcelain cats, and dusty paperbacks that smell like someone's attic. Kids run around with sticky hands and bags of kettle corn. Elderly couples shuffle by holding hands. You'll find people selling handmade soaps next to booths blasting 80s rock from Bluetooth speakers with dying batteries. And underneath it all, the faint smell of grilled onions, car exhaust, and nostalgia. This was her place. My mom never missed a Saturday here. Not even in the dead of winter, when she'd bundle up in 3 scarves and sip scalding cocoa from a thermos, just to walk past the vendors and smile at the people she knew. She'd always say, "This is where people come to remember who they are." I didn't know what I expected walking in, maybe just the whisper of her memory, maybe to catch a glimpse of her red knit hat from behind a crowd. But I didn't see her. What I did see was a perfect spot near the food trucks, tucked between a honey vendor and a guy selling birdhouses. The space felt intimate, exposed, and oddly sacred. So I set up. My podcast booth was nothing fancy, just a collapsible table, 2 folding chairs, and a hand-painted sign I'd made on the plane, Sharpie on cardboard. Say what needs to be said. The moment I taped it up, my heart started pounding. This was real now. I wired up the gear, connected the mic, checked the levels on my laptop. A couple people passed by, glancing with mild curiosity. Some slowed down, whispered to their companions. A woman pushing a stroller asked, "Is this like a street interview thing?" I nodded. Something like that. But truthfully, I didn't care who else heard it. This was for her. I sat down, put the headphones over one ear, pressed record, and took a breath that felt heavier than all the months of silence combined. My voice trembled when I began. "This isn't a pity rant," I said, eyes staring at the mic as if it were some sacred object. "This is a story. My story. Our story." I paused. My mom, she raised me on her own, worked 2 jobs, and somehow still found time to sing me to sleep every night. She had this one lullaby. I don't know if she made it up or heard it somewhere, but it went. I hummed a few shaky notes of the melody, instantly flooded with the image of my childhood bedroom, the glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling, her voice curling around me like a blanket. "She made sacrifices I'll never fully understand," I continued. "She gave up vacations, dinners out, even a second chance at love because she didn't want anything to take her away from me." A lump formed in my throat. We had traditions. Road trips where we got lost on purpose. Movie nights with way too much popcorn. Open mic nights where she clapped louder than anyone else in the room, even when my poems were terrible. A couple walking past slowed their steps. The woman tilted her head, listening. The man nodded slowly. I kept going. "I'm not perfect. I've been busy. I moved far away. But I never stopped loving her. Never stopped needing her." I looked down at my hands, white-knuckled around the mic. 6 months ago, something changed. Calls stopped. Texts got colder. Then she told me not to call her anymore. No explanation. Just gone. My voice cracked. I didn't edit it out. If you're listening to this, Mom, or if someone plays it for you, I just want to know what I did. I want to understand. A breeze moved through the market, sending the edges of my sign fluttering. People walked by, but I barely saw them now. Because I miss you. More than I've missed anything in my life. And this silence. I looked directly into the mic, like I could will her to hear me through it. This silence feels worse than anger. And then, I felt it. That unmistakable shift in the air. That tingling sense of being watched. A shadow crept across the table. I didn't look up right away. I was scared to, because if it wasn't her, I didn't know what I'd do. And if it was, I wasn't sure I'd be able to breathe. The booth went quiet. My mic still recording. My breath caught in my chest. And then, that's when a shadow appeared. The market noise dimmed around me. A strange hush fell over my booth, like the air itself was holding its breath. That's when I saw her. At first, she was just a shape behind the crowd. A faint silhouette near the edge of the food stalls, motionless beneath a faded striped awning. Her hair, still the soft chestnut brown I remembered, but streaked with more gray than I'd expected, was pulled back in a loose braid that rested over her shoulder. She wore her favorite denim jacket, the one she'd had since I was in middle school, the sleeves always rolled up just below her elbows. In one hand, she held a small paper bag bulging with fuzzy peaches. And her eyes, God, her eyes, were shining. Not just from sunlight, but from something wet, and raw, and ancient. Grief maybe. Or guilt. Or some fragile combination of the two. My heart stopped. Just for a second. It felt like seeing a ghost. Or like my brain couldn't quite trust what my eyes were telling it. Is it really her? Am I dreaming this? She wasn't walking forward. Not yet. She just stood there. Frozen. Staring straight at me, but almost through me. Like she was still deciding whether to run. Or whether she even belonged in this moment anymore. I didn't move either. I was afraid that if I blinked, she'd vanish. The background blur of people kept passing between us. Kids dragging balloons, a couple arguing over kettle corn, a vendor shouting about handmade soap, but I didn't hear any of it. The world around us had collapsed into a tunnel of stillness. And then, she took one step. Then another. Slow, hesitant steps across the gravel path. Her shoes crunching with every inch. She moved past the sign, "Say what needs to be said," past the mic that was still recording, past the curious onlookers who turned to see who was interrupting. A few heads turned. No one stopped her. She came right up to me. close enough that I could smell her perfume, lavender and something faintly citrusy, the same one she always wore when she dressed up for holidays. My mother didn't like strong fragrances. She said they were showy. She liked soft, subtle things. Hummingbirds over hawks. Handwritten notes over text messages. And apparently, silent exits over painful goodbyes. My chest was tight. I couldn't form a word. I just looked at her. Took her in. She looked thinner. Not sickly, just a little smaller, like time had curled her inward. There were shadows beneath her eyes. A tremble in her hand that held the peaches. Her mouth opened slightly, like she was searching for words, and unsure if she deserved to say them out loud. And then she leaned forward. Her lips barely moved. It was more breath than sound. But I heard it. I didn't know how to tell you, she whispered, her voice shaky, almost childlike. I have early onset Alzheimer's. The sentence hit like a punch to the lungs. At first, it didn't compute. The words floated in the air, but didn't land. Not really. They bounced off my skull like I was wearing a helmet made of denial. I blinked. What? She looked down, ashamed. Her shoulders folded in on themselves. I saw her chest rising and falling rapidly, like even just saying it had drained something from her. I didn't know how, she said again. And then the longer I waited, the harder it got. My legs wobbled beneath me. I grabbed the side of the table to steady myself, trying to breathe, but every inhale burned. Alzheimer's? This woman. This force of nature who taught me how to drive by letting me steer through cornfields, who danced in the kitchen while flipping pancakes, who remembered everyone's birthdays 3 months in advance, was forgetting? My brain rejected it. Flat out. No, I said under my breath. No, that can't be right. Her lips curved into a sad, knowing smile. Not unkind, just resigned. I've known for a little while. A few months. Maybe longer if I'm being honest. I felt the blood drain from my face. Why didn't you tell me? She looked at me then, really looked, eyes full of tears, guilt, fear. Because I couldn't stand the idea of you watching me disappear, she said softly. Piece by piece. I didn't want you to see me, become less of myself. A lump formed in my throat, hard and sharp like a stone. My ears were ringing. All that time I thought you hated me, I whispered. That you were angry, or hiding something, or, God, I thought I'd done something awful. She closed her eyes. One tear slipped down her cheek. I know, she said, her voice cracking. And I'm so sorry for that. I thought pushing you away would protect you. That if I left now, it would spare you the pain of watching me fade. A small crowd was beginning to gather at the edge of the booth now. People pretending to browse but staying just close enough to listen. I didn't care. This wasn't for them. This was for us. Do you know how cruel that felt? I said, my voice rising slightly, despite the ache in my chest. You vanished on me. You didn't even give me a chance to show up. To be there for you. Her hand twitched at her side. She looked down at the peaches in her bag, like they were safer to stare at than me. I didn't want pity, she murmured. I stepped around the table. My hands were shaking, but I reached out and took hers. They were colder than I remembered. Bonier. But they still closed around mine the same way. Muscle memory maybe. Or something deeper. I don't pity you, I said. I love you. Her bottom lip trembled. Her shoulders hitched once. Just once. Before she burst into tears. The kind of tears that come from holding in a truth too heavy, too long. People turned away respectfully, pretending not to stare. A woman near the kettle corn stall wiped her eyes discreetly. An older man nodded once in quiet understanding. I'm scared, Mia, she whispered. I can already feel it happening. I forgot where I left my car last week. I got lost driving home from the grocery store. I couldn't remember the name of the woman I've known for 15 years next door. Sometimes I wake up and I forget where I am, who I am. Tears streamed down her face. My mother, the strongest person I've ever known, was crumbling in front of me, and not metaphorically. I pulled her into a hug. Right there, in front of the world. I didn't care who saw. Her shoulders shook against mine. After a moment she pulled back. I thought if I just let you go, now while I still could, maybe it would hurt you less later. Maybe it would protect you. I looked her in the eyes. But I don't want protection. She frowned, confused. I want you. However much time we have left, however many memories. I don't care if someday you forget my name, I won't forget yours. Her hand flew to her mouth, trying to contain another sob. I took both her hands and squeezed tight. Then we'll remember together, I said. And in that moment, it didn't matter who was listening. It didn't matter that the mic was still recording, capturing everything. It didn't matter that our reunion was messy, public, imperfect. What mattered was that the silence had broken. And we weren't going back. She moved in with me 3 weeks later. It wasn't part of some grand plan. There were no drawn-up checklists or color-coded folders. It just happened. Like breath returning to lungs that had forgotten how to expand. Like the way some flowers bloom after a drought. Not because they were told to, but because something inside them said now. I flew back to Austin alone the next morning after the flea market. I didn't expect her to come with me, not then. I thought maybe we'd just keep talking. Maybe I'd visit again soon. But before I could even unpack my field mic, she called. I don't want to forget you from far away, she said simply. If I'm going to lose pieces of myself, I want the last ones to be near you. That hit me hard. In the heart. In the gut. Everywhere. So I cleared out the guest room. I took down the tapestry she always said gave her vertigo and replaced it with one of her favorite watercolor prints. An old barn in the middle of a wildflower field. I bought her lavender candles and soft slippers. I stocked the kitchen with her favorite teas, even the weird ones that smell like boiled roots. I ordered a whiteboard for the fridge, labeled it "Today is," and stuck up a fresh dry erase marker. I was preparing a space, but really, I was preparing myself. 3 weeks after that day in Ohio, I drove to the airport with shaking hands and an anxious knot in my stomach. I didn't know how this would work. I didn't know how to care for someone who might someday look at me and ask, "And you are?" But when I saw her coming down the terminal walkway, wheeling that old floral suitcase she'd had since I was 12, wearing the same denim jacket and a crooked smile, somehow it all felt right. She moved in. And we began again. At first, it was easy. There were routines. We cooked together. We had breakfast on the balcony. We went on walks. And she'd name every plant like they were old friends. She remembered things. What time I got home. The name of my podcast editor. Even how I used to cry during the ending of Steel Magnolias. But every now and then, I'd catch her blanking. We'd be making tea, and she'd freeze mid-sentence, staring at the stove like it had just morphed into something alien. Or she'd forget whether she'd fed the cat, even though we don't have one. Little things. Not daily, but often enough. I didn't correct her right away. I didn't want to embarrass her. But I could see it in her eyes. The flicker of panic. The moment she realized her mind had just left her behind. And she hated that more than anything. "Don't look at me like that," she said once, with a sharp edge I hadn't heard since before the flea market. Like I'm breaking. I just quietly reached for the tea kettle she'd put in the fridge. I lowered my voice. "I'm not looking at you like that." "Yes, you are. I'm just here." That seemed to soften something in her. "Okay," she whispered. "Then just stay here." A week after she moved in, I started recording again. Not for a job. Not for downloads. Not for the hundreds of DMs still flooding in after the flea market clip went viral. This time, I recorded for us. I called the new series Remembering Mom. Not because I'd lost her, but because I refused to. I was going to remember with her. Not after. Not someday. Now. The first episode was raw. I sat on the couch with a mic between us. The cat we don't have curled up in her lap. Her imagination was alive and well. She was nervous at first. "Why would anyone want to hear this?" she asked. "Because this is real," I said. "And because people love you. Even the ones who don't know you yet." That made her laugh. "Well, they won't love me if I forget the name of our imaginary cat." We named him Boots. In that first episode, we talked about the road trip we took to the Smokies when I was 13. How we got caught in the rain and danced like idiots in a gas station parking lot. How we ate stale donuts and listened to Fleetwood Mac the entire drive. "I remember the rain," she said, eyes distant. "But not the song. It was Landslide. You cried when it came on." Her brows furrowed. Did I? I nodded. And you said it felt like your whole life was changing. She smiled faintly. Seems like it still is. We both cried during that one. And people listened. Thousands of them. Emails poured in. Messages from strangers who had lost their parents to Alzheimer's, or who were parents trying to hold on as long as they could. One woman wrote, "You're helping me grieve while my mom's still here. Thank you for showing me it's okay to stay." Some days, the episodes are light. We laugh about old boyfriends and the terrible casserole phase she had in 2004. She tells stories she's told 100 times, and I pretend like I'm hearing them for the first. Other days, she forgets halfway through. Like the time we were talking about my 5th grade science fair, and she suddenly went blank. Her voice quieted. "I'm sorry, where are we again?" I paused the recording. Took her hand. "We're home, Mom." She squeezed back. Okay. Just checking." We left the mic running after that. Because those moments, they're part of the story too. Not every day is beautiful. Some are brutal. There are mornings she forgets how to make coffee, and gets angry when I offer to help. Nights she wanders into the hallway confused, asking where her parents are. I remind her they passed away years ago. Sometimes that makes her cry. Sometimes it just confuses her more. I keep the whiteboard on the fridge updated. Today is Wednesday. You're at Mia's home in Austin. You are safe. You are loved. She crosses it out sometimes. She thinks someone's lying to her. Those days are hard. Sometimes unbearable. But then there are the quiet mornings. When we sit on the balcony sipping tea. When she rests her head on my shoulder and hums the melody she sang to me when I was little. The one she thought she forgot, but somehow still remembers. And in those moments, I feel something more powerful than the grief. I feel presence. A kind of stillness wrapped in unconditional love. She hears me now. And I hear her. We talk more than ever. Not just into microphones, but during walks, grocery runs, even when folding laundry. I record our conversations sometimes without her noticing. Not to share, but to keep. To hold the sound of her voice against time's erasure. And she tells me stories I've never heard before. Like how she almost left Ohio once. Wanted to move to Portland and open a bookstore, but stayed because she couldn't uproot me in the middle of 4th grade. "Would you have been happier?" I asked. She looked at me long and hard. "I am happy. Right now. With you." And I realized. Happiness doesn't need a before. It needs a now. Love isn't always convenient. It's not clean. It doesn't follow schedules or logic. It doesn't make you feel better every day. But it does stay. Even when someone tries to push it away. Sometimes, love looks like flying across the country with a microphone and a desperate heart. Sometimes it means sitting in the dark with someone who's forgotten where they are, and reminding them, gently over and over without losing patience. Sometimes love is not letting go. Even when the person you love asks you to. And if I had to pick up that microphone 100 times, shout into the void, pour out my heart to strangers, just to get her back, I'd do it every single time. Because silence may be loud. But love is louder.